Welcome back to the channel, Bridging the Gap Student to Engineer. Today's video is about getting ready to graduate and getting ready for the real world of STEM after your education or your initial education. This video is going to be focused on people who are going into their senior year maybe or in their senior year, but it's never too early to plan. So take a look, even if you're early on in your university career. Okay, the first thing on here is prioritize. It's really important for you to make sure you put first things first and don't let things get in the way. So the first thing is your mental health, your physical health, your family. Take care of yourself. Take care of your spiritual life if that's something that's important to you, but make sure that you don't drop things that are core to you and your family and who you are as a person. Then school. Don't let getting ready to graduate get in the way of you getting through school. It does happen where people are spending too much time trying to get a job and they don't graduate. They don't pass their last couple classes. So don't let that happen to you. Make sure school is up there on your priority list. And then at the bottom, get ready for things that are going to happen after graduation. The reason that this is such a general term and a broad term that we're using here is because it's not just getting a job. It's things like moving to a new place. It's moving out of your place you've been living for school. It's a lot of things that happen. Some people get married right out of school, but make sure that you're prioritizing yourself and school on top of all of those things that you have to worry about for the future. Okay, so once you have prioritized the right things and you're getting to thinking about what comes next, I really encourage you to reflect. This is your opportunity to think about what you've been through, think about what you've gone through in your life, what is good, what's bad, what you want to duplicate, what you don't want to duplicate. Going back to the video on internships, and that's a really good opportunity to test new things, new industries, new types of companies, new places, and all of those experiences that you've had, you need to reflect on and decide if something that you tested out while you were in school or an experience you've had is something that you would like to continue in your life. Okay, so I mentioned internships, but let's get into it a little bit more deeply. As you've gone through school, you should have done a few internships. And taking time, if you haven't already, to think about what it is you liked about those internships, what you didn't like, what you would like to continue, what is something that you want to avoid for the future. All of those things are things that you need to think about, particularly when you're going to get a full-time job. You want to make sure that you don't get a job that has some aspects that you didn't like in your internship. So make sure you reflect on those kind of things. Okay, and then the next two go together. I'll just put them up together, but reflecting on classes within your major and outside your major. Okay, so regardless of what major you have, what degree you're getting, your job is not going to be doing all of those things. If you barely got through thermodynamics and you hated thermodynamics, don't get a job that's going to require you to do thermodynamic calculations, for example. Or maybe you took a class outside of your major, music appreciation, and you think that's really interesting. Maybe there are jobs out there that incorporate music and your major. There are a lot of things in life that incorporate a lot of different aspects of what you've done in your degree and outside of your degree. So take a look, think about things, think about what you've enjoyed and what you haven't enjoyed and what you would like to continue and what you would like not to continue. Okay, and then your long-term goals. So some people are really good at setting goals or have really good goals. Other people are just like, my goal was to graduate. I'm not sure what I have a goal afterwards, but I encourage you to look at those long-term goals if you have them written down. And if you don't, take some time out to think about what those long-term goals are. It may be as simple as getting a job that can help you pay off your student loans. That's a good short-term goal that will lead to a long-term goal, but you need to be thinking along those lines. If you do have a lot of student loans and you go get a job that sounds like the most awesome thing ever, but you're barely going to be able to survive on the money you're making, then you're not going to be able to pay off those loans. So those are things that you definitely want to write down, make a list as you reflect through all these things, and make sure that when you're looking for what comes next, that they incorporate all of these things that you have going on. Okay, so along the long-term goals, this is something that I've talked about several times and I will continue to talk about is where do you want to be? This is the bigger picture of what you want to do with your life. If you just kind of drift along, life will happen to you and you may get to be 40, 50 and wonder what happened. But if you're taking the time now to think about what you want to do and where do you want to be, do you want to stay in your hometown? Do you want to go back to your hometown if you left for school? Do you want to get away? Do you want to take some time and do something completely different? Those are the types of things you need to be thinking about when you're reflecting before you spend a lot of time looking at what comes next and what comes later. Okay, so then what next? Okay, so what have your reflections revealed? Did you find out anything? I hope that you discovered something as you were reflecting. If you didn't, please go back to the previous slide and the previous list and anything else that you can think of to add and reflect on how you've gotten where you are and what makes sense to continue and what makes sense to stop. But are there conclusions that you've gotten from those reflections? Are there like maybe themes that have come out of it, or ideas that kind of all go together, which is a theme, but a different way of thinking about it? And think about what you've gotten out of that reflection and how that can impact what you want to do in the next couple of years or the rest of your life. Okay, so as part of the reflections, this is something I haven't talked about before, but considering whether more school is an option. Presumably you've just gotten a bachelor's in some sort of STEM degree. Some areas of work require advanced degrees and some don't require them, but they're helpful. If it's an option, it should realistically always be an option. If you have a lot of student loans and you go to more school, as long as they are student loans and not private loans, they will most likely allow you to defer payments until afterwards. So that shouldn't be something that will stop you. For the most part, if you are in a STEM area, you should be able to get an assistantship with an advanced degree. So there will be money coming in that may be a little bit different than your undergrad. And just doesn't make sense to you. I do know that quite often when the economy goes south, there are more people that go back to school rather than getting a job because they weren't able to get a job when they graduated. So think about that as an option. It may not be your first option, but we'll get back into how many options you should have. But it's something to think about. And it also is something to think about as a fallback position if you are getting frustrated with finding a job. But please, if you have concerns about that, leave some comments and we could definitely talk more about more school and what that would mean for you. Okay, is a full-time job the next step? Most often when you're not going to school, you're doing a full-time job, but there may be something else that you want to do. Maybe you want to start a new business. It is a little bit harder to start a business right away, right out of school, although there's lots of stories of people even dropping out of university to go start a business and being very successful. But if that's something that you want to do or you're thinking about, definitely give some thought to that on whether or not that makes sense to you, and do you have the support system that'll allow you to make that happen. Okay, and then this last part really is about having options. You should have a plan A. Go through your reflections. Think about whether school's an option. Think about if a full-time job is what you're looking for, or if you want to start a business, or there are a lot of other options out there. But have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and maybe even a plan D and however many letters you want. Um, if you get too stuck on wanting to do something very, very specific and it doesn't work out, that can be pretty hard for some people and most people if what you're trying to do doesn't work out. But if you've got options, it's going to make your life a lot easier, and you'll have less frustrations to deal with as you're working through what comes next. Okay, so once you've gotten to the point where you've had some reflections, thought about what you want to do, want you to update a bunch of things to reflect what your goals are. So your resume should be updated. Please update your resume. We've talked about a LinkedIn profile. It should align with your resume. Whether or not it has everything is another question, but definitely make sure these two are updated. Um, Within LinkedIn, go and request recommendations from professionals that you know. While you've been in school, you should be connecting with professors, with people you met at your internships, and maybe even your family members, especially if they have similar professions. It's really great to have those connections. But connect with as many people as you can. And then for people that you believe would provide a recommendation, request recommendations so you have them in your profile. So update your attitude, and I've also got update your thinking. So what you've done to date, if you've just come out of high school, gone to university, and then you're working on your degree, you've been in a pretty safe place where, yes, you have had to make some decisions. You've had to do some things on your own, but as a university graduate, you're going to be on your own completely. And so your attitude towards some things may need to change. I'm not saying they do, but please just think about that and spend a little bit of time reflecting on whether or not that applies to you. And then when I say update your thinking, I'm really talking about this is life, this is long term. So if you have been following what we were talking about getting internships and trying new things and everything, your first job out of college can still be a good opportunity to try new things. But just keep in mind that you're committing to a long-term role. You should not take a long-term role right out of school and quit in 3 months, which is kind of the model for an internship. Think about it as a long-term. Think about being there at least 2 years, and would that make sense to you? And it may change the way that you're thinking about what those jobs are. There's more on that in the video that talks about getting a job right out of school. I'll provide a link to it, but that may be something that you want to look at. And then goes back to, where do you want to be? You really need to be thinking about where you want to be and where you want to go in life, and make sure that as you're looking for what's next, it aligns with where you want to be long term. Okay, and then the fun part, testing. So while you're thinking about graduating, you need to think about what your options are for what you're going to do. What's in your plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, whatever plan you have. And then think about what tests you might need to be taking now to support that. So I'm going to list the first two options that are basic for engineers. You need to take the Fundamental of Engineering exam if you're eligible. So you need to look into this, ask professors, see if there's discussions on campus. Most of the time you'll be able to take Fundamentals of Engineering exam your last semester of college. If you take it while you're still at the university, still getting your degree, it will be much easier. Also, if you don't take this, then there are going to be job opportunities that you may miss. What you'll find is that a lot of the entry-level engineering jobs require the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. It might also be listed as engineer in training. If you go find a job and you don't have this, you may be hired at a lower pay grade simply because you don't have it. So take the exam. Um, if you're not going to take it because you're too busy or prioritizing yourself, your family, your school is too much and you just couldn't take it in school, then what is your plan? You need to come up with a plan for taking it after you graduate if that's what you need to do. But make sure to look into this exam. If you want us to talk more about that, please leave in the comments and we'll have some more discussions about it. If you are in engineering, the next step is the professional engineer exam. And again, if you're eligible. So some states allow you to take the professional engineer exam right out of school and then get the experience that's required to actually get the PE certification. You'd need to look into what your state requires. Again, if you're going to move from one state to another after you graduate, all of those things are considerations, but definitely look into this and take it if you can. The farther out from school you are when you try to take these exams, the harder they will be. But if you're not going to take the PE right now, whether it's a priority thing or you're not eligible, make sure that you look into when you're eligible based on the state that you're in or the state you're planning on moving to. Typically, what it is that you have a degree and 4 years of experience. That's the typical standard direct path. So it may be that you just need to plan for being in the right role for 4 years before you take that. But also be aware that if you do desire to have a professional engineer license, there are specific requirements for working with professional engineers for a specific amount of time. So if you haven't already looked into that, please do. And then if you have any thought of grad school, and again, that question of is going to grad school an option, you may need to take the GRE. Look into that. If it's an option and you might want to do it, it may be a good idea just to take the exam to preempt that. These are things that I'm throwing out there that you need to think about. They may not directly apply to you, but I want to make sure that you're thinking and reviewing and moving in the right direction, or at least knowing what to have conversations about. So the FE and the PE are exams for if you're going to go into working. The GRE, and then these other ones are more for more school. So the LSAT, if you're thinking about law school, if you want to be a patent lawyer, you need to have an engineering degree and a law degree. So if that's something that you're looking at doing, make sure you take the LSATs. I've listed the MCATs. If you want to go to med school, engineering or any STEM degree is really good pathways for law and medicine. So hopefully there are people who are listening to this who are thinking about those things. But don't let tests get in the way of you being able to go to these schools and get the continuing education you need. But think about them early, especially if you're doing MCATs and LSATs. Definitely look into them at least during your junior year so that you have time to prep and make sure you've got everything in order. All right, so test. I know it's another thing to add to your plate, but definitely don't just let it go by and think you'll worry about it later. I will tell you that there are a lot of people who get out of school and get distracted or start doing other things or just never get around to getting a PE license when they actually had that as a goal. So make sure you identify what you need to do and make a goal and make it happen. All right, well, that's the end of the video today. Thank you for listening. again. I will put more links in this video. Please like and subscribe with notification bell on. I'm trying to do these about once a week as my time allows with my prioritizing myself, my family, and my job. So please keep listening. And also, I would love to see your comments about what you're interested in hearing about. I've got a list of topics, but I'm happy to have specific discussions as needed. All right, well, thank you and have a great day.